and welcome everyone to another episode of the Flare Factor by Sceptre, a show where we talk about the Flare ecosystem with our partners and figure out where to go and what our plans are for the future. Today with me here is Derek from Steer Protocol. Maybe you want to introduce yourself.
Hey, yeah. My name is Derek, core contributor over at Steer Protocol. Been in the industry since about 2017 as a builder. So built a bunch of different things, but currently building out Steer, and one of our proud networks is Flare. So can't wait to dive into what we're doing there.
Amazing. Thank you. Thank you so much for showing up, for being here today with us, and for discussing Steer Protocol. Let's first do a couple of quick updates on our projects, and then head over to discussion. Would you like to start?
Sure. Yeah. So Steer Protocol has a couple new updates. We recently released a couple new centralized exchange data connectors, which provide access to Binance, Coinbase, OKX, and a few other centralized exchanges. So that's really exciting for us as it allows people to bridge centralized feeds on chain. And we also have added a couple new strategies to our mix as well. Some of them actually that are on Flare today, called the Fluid Liquidity Strategy, which uses certain special features to help reduce the impermanent loss you see while you sit inside, for instance, S-Flare pools. And we've also broadened a new product which will be hopefully coming live in the next month or so around rewards, which will also be coming to Flare, which will hopefully help ease the burden of any reward distribution on the chain.
Okay, sounds cool. Maybe we can discuss that a little bit later in detail, because I'm curious about some of those things myself. As for Sceptre, we had a poll about APR or APY, and I guess we should have expected it, but you want both, and that's what we're going to try and make happen. So our APR will be based on the last 30-day Flare drop period, and of course APY is an estimation of future rewards. Other than that, staking will unpause or reopen on the 7th of October. As many of you probably know, we have staking and non-staking periods, that is to prevent double dipping, which would impact your APR as a user of Sceptre. And lastly, if you haven't seen it yet, there is an update to the S Rewards tab, which will show you basically all the incoming rewards.
Maybe we do an overview of what is Steer first, if you don't mind.
That. Yes. Go for it.
Yeah, sure. So Steer is an interesting type of system. We basically sit in two different parts of the ecosystem for protocols. We sit below them as basically these orchestration nodes that can automate different protocols on chain. And we sit on top of them as like an app ecosystem where people can develop different apps on top of these protocols. One of those protocols that we've integrated with is Uniswap v3, as well as different AMMs, so that we can allow people to write different strategies for liquidity management. Which a lot of people call automated liquidity management. And so through that, basically, people can deploy their strategies and use them using a no-code interface that allows people to deploy liquidity inside of different pools over, for instance, SparkDex, and earn basically the trading fees that the LPs would get. And so it allows you to earn fees while your money's kind of sitting in your wallet, fully non-custodial.
Just, I guess, for the audience, most people will probably know what it means, but liquidity management, can you explain it a little bit more?
Sure. Yeah, it's a really good question. So a lot of people trade on AMMs when you go on chain. And to be able to do that, there has to be liquidity. So to do liquidity, you have to provide two different assets into a pool. And usually you have to provide also the price range in which you want to place those assets. So let's say you're trading, let's say Ethereum at $1,000 and Ethereum goes up to $2,000. You would need to move your liquidity because you might be out of range. And when that happens, you can incur impermanent loss and a bunch of other not so fun things. And so what Steer Steer's protocol does is they basically automate your liquidity in the pool, so it's always in range and always acquiring fees.
All right. So like for smaller chance of impermanent loss, I guess, with that.
Smaller, still right, but we try and reduce it as much as possible.
Yeah. Smaller, not. There's always risk, right?
There's always no, yeah. It's inherent with the systems that we use, but yeah, we try and to try our best against it.
I've had some questions here and there on social media, like about Steer protocol and how it works, or it's discussed in our groups. And of course, I don't have all the answers, but I'm hoping that you do. Would you be able to show us how it works?
Yeah, I would love to actually. Let me share my screen here over to our app. Give it 1 second. Cool. So this is the Steer app. Welcome. First things first, you can choose your available dexes. If you aren't on the Flare network and you're trying to get to the Flare network, we have a nice switcher. You can just search the word Flare, if I spelt it right, and select it. Once you do so, it'll get you over here. SparkDex is the only protocol that we currently support, but we're excited to hopefully support Enosis when they come live. Additionally, though, you can see all the pools that are currently sitting on Spark. And if there's a pool that you don't see, for instance, let's say it's on USDX, you can search those tokens. And so you search a token. At that point, you'll be able to see all the pools that are registered for it. And if there's not a smart pool deployed, you can hit this button, actually go into what we call quick mode, which allows you to deploy an automated strategy on top of any pool. We're the only permissionless system or protocol out there that allows that. But let's say you're just trying to get involved in S-Flare Joule. You basically select this and choose the vault that's right for you. There's this one currently has farming rewards, so let's choose that. And once you get into that, you'll end up with basically a liquidity chart with the liquidity, maybe a summary of the strategy. You can learn about what is a smart pool, what are some of the caveats of smart pools, get into like the audits and security around the contracts that we use. Also view the relevant contracts if that's something you're interested in. But the big gist here is that you can look basically at the earned fees, the total TVL, where the fee APRs are coming from. So off the pool, it's making 4% on the strategy. And then for staking, there's 168%. So that might be interesting to you. To get involved, you would deposit both two assets of Joule and S-Flare, and in return, you'd get a Vault LP token in your wallet. So it's a like Steer Spark LP, and that's really cool. So what you can do is you can take it down here and actually stake it for the incentives. So if you hit the stake button, you could say max, and at that point you would be staking your LP for the Joule rewards, and that can all be done basically in a single UI. So it's really nice to come back here. You can claim them and do all your other maintenance that you'd like to do, but it's all kind of here in one easy place.
All right.
But that's the main gist of how you get involved from a user who's not trying to do anything too crazy.
Yeah. I mean, many users, of course, like stake their Flare, get S-Flare, and then are wondering what to do next. One of the most common options, of course, is to go to a lending market and just drop it there. But the rewards might not be to your liking. So I see there are a lot of pools here.
Yes, that's correct.
Care to point some of them out?
Yeah, easily. So what's really nice here is that you can kind of view the fee APRs straight off the bat. So let's look at a couple. S-Flare, Wrap Flare is getting about 37% APR. S-Flare, Wrap Flare for a little bit higher of a fee tier. So these are the fee tiers. So this is 0.3%, and that would be the SparkDex AMM pools fee tier. But this was doing 21%. This is obviously one that might be interesting for people holding WETH and USDCE. Is it doing about 104% APR? But let's say we go into like one of these pools. This is using the fluid liquidity strategy. This is the new strategy that came live just this past month. And basically what it'll do is you'll notice it has multiple different positions that it's done. If S-Flare or Flare is going up in price, you want to make sure that you're not giving it away because it's getting more expensive. You want to keep that, right? And so what will happen is the strategy will find that happening inside of the price range and then basically widen itself out so that you can kind of accumulate and have better control over the impermanent loss that hits you as you sit in these pools. So fluid liquidity strategy, very interesting strategy. Think, if you're looking for something to try, that might be something to try. But the tried and true is always our classic rebalance strategy for S-Flare and Jewel. That is, I think, the king pool right now over at Steer.
Yeah.
A couple other pools though I would say is there's a couple that haven't been made that are seeing significant volume. So with USDCE on 0.05, maybe we'll create one of those today, and then also Wrap Flare with USDX. It looks like it's also starting to see some volume. These are the top 10 pools on Spark based on volume.
Are there any pools coming up that you know about?
I don't think. Yeah, I don't think so. I can't really talk about too many of the new pools that we work with, but yeah, there are a couple new pools coming out. We add new pools probably weekly or bi-weekly, depending on the chain. And so when they do hit the chain, we like to make a little bit of noise about it. So you'll see it on our official Twitter. So if you follow us, you'll see any new pool announcements or any farming programs that are initiated through us.
Yeah. All right, cool. You probably already explained it, but smart pools. So that is, have I understood it correctly? That's like when it tries to keep you within that range that is best for you.
That's correct.
Okay. Right.
Yeah, smart pools is the automated liquidity management solution built on top of Steer Protocol. Steer Protocol allows you to build really any type of on-chain product that could be consumer facing. And we help with the automation, the security, and providing like the multi-node setup so that you can do it, do it the right way.
I guess this is like the thing. The smart pools are one of those items that solve a problem, at least as I understand it. That when you enter the liquidity pool, I've had this often, like from users, like, yeah, I put like my S-Flare in a liquidity pool, and now I have less S-Flare. What happened?
Yeah. So that's the impermanent loss that we're talking about, right? And so if S-Flare is going up, right, you don't want to lose S-Flare, because what's happening, and just to talk about it, in layman's terms, right, is like you have two things, right? You have S-Flare, and let's just call it like USDC, right? And if S-Flare is going up, people are buying S-Flare, right? And that means they're going to be buying it from you, right? So that they can, right? And so you're going to get that price. And so you're basically selling S-Flare as it goes up. And that's where the fluid liquidity is really helpful, is it says, okay, hold on, S-Flare is going up. I like S-Flare. Maybe we should widen this out. So we're giving away less S-Flare as the price goes up. And that's more of those protective measures. And so the smart pools have different ways of doing that. And each one's unique. There's about 17 strategies in total within the strategy library, which is a no-code solution. So if anyone wants to try it out, I can show a demo of that real quick if you'd like. But yeah, let me do that.
So to finish that question, basically, like when people buy the S-Flare from the pool, you end up with the other token, right?
That's Jewel. Yeah, you would have Jewel
in this case, but whatever the pool is, you always end up with the
opposite. Yeah. So, yeah. Well, it depends on where it goes, because the price could come down, right? And you can never predict the future, and so you're always trying your best, right? There's no way you can predict, right? And have so. Okay, so this is like basically a list of the top 10 pools, but let's just pick S-Flare, Wrap Flare, right? From here, we can basically look at all the strategies that are deployed on the chain. The classic rebalance, I think, is one of the more fun ones. And it allows you to do a couple things. You can place your liquidity only where it's Wrap Flare, only where it's S-Flare. You can choose different types of channels. So maybe you want to do a price multiplier. So you want to have a channel that's like 2x the price, or maybe it'll be 30% up or 30% down, right? Or something like that. There's other ways of like retriggering basically when you rebalance your liquidity. So let's say you're trying to chase the price as it goes up. You could do maybe a one-way range exit. And then also there's like different liquidity shapes. So what we'll find here is that this is, I believe, two like-kind assets. So what we can do is we can actually then build out, I think, a liquidity curve around the current like pegged price. And that will allow us to get a heightened return basically on our investment. So what I'll do is to like 1 point. This is kind of interesting. So anyone can develop a strategy on top of Steer, deploy it into our strategy marketplace, and then anyone can use it. If the strategist deploys something that's doing well, they get a third of the performance fee to them.
Okay.
So it's actually, there's like incentives to do it. And right now, let's say someone built this, they published it. We're running this in the browser right now. And so we can actually get a live preview before we even publish it. So that when the nodes run on Steer, you'll get the same result basically as what you're seeing in the browser. So all the same is running, which is kind of cool. So what you can do is you can do, it's a simulator basically. Which runs those apps that people develop. And so basically you can set your rebalance schedule, the initial gas that you'd like to fund it for, and your balance, and then you're kind of off to the races, and everything else will kind of get automated. But the big thing is that you can pick really any of these strategies. You can get into the fluid liquidity. You'll see it has a different kind of setup. Each one is a little bit different. There's also the data marketplace. So there's a fair share of different data connectors you can choose from to connect to your strategies. If you're trying to use like historical data. But the idea is that we try and make it where it's as no code as possible for people to get started.
Yeah, I think that's pretty important for most of our users, because like I think a lot of people are not that used yet to DeFi. They come from XRP or
right.
a similar kind of network. And getting them thrown into code to fix to deal with your strategies might be difficult.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think this is really useful. What do you see Steer doing in the future in the Flare network specifically?
Yeah, so the next one we have is our Omni reward platform called Smart Rewards. Hopefully we stop calling everything smart and then something, but this one is called Smart Rewards, and it basically allows you to use both Web 2 and Web 3 data, so off-chain and on-chain data, to determine the distribution of any kind of incentive program, right, or ERC20 tokens. So what we can do basically is help distribute rewards for our V3 liquidity pools and other ALMs that may also provide services on Flare in the future. We can do lending incentive programs as well. But what's really nice about this is for the current staking system that we have on the Steer side, the LP tokens kind of get locked up into a staking vault. And so you can't really do anything with them. You can't lend against them. You can't loop. You're just kind of locked up. And so with this program, it's a stakeless reward platform that basically allows it where you don't have to stake your assets, and instead maybe you can run them through bonding programs. Maybe you can do a bunch of other LP DeFi using these assets. So it kind of allows for these reward programs to continue, but also unlock the assets to be used within like DeFi itself.
Yeah. So in a way, like liquid staking, right? Where you normally have them locked up, and you kind of like have to unlock them.
That's funny. Yes, in a sense. Yes.
And then you use your liquid stake token in
I haven't made that parallel yet, but that's a pretty good parallel. I wouldn't say it's spot on, but there's parallels for sure. Yeah. We did just get approved at Nexus Mutual as well as Open Cover. So if people are looking to also get insurance on their deposits, you can currently buy them through Nexus Mutual or OpenCover something. Go look it up. I don't want to say the wrong one. But if you go look at Open Cover, you can also look up Steer, and you'll be able to provide coverage on top of any of the deposits inside of the Steer vault. And obviously look at the terms and conditions and stuff, but very nice to be able to provide coverage on top of Steer pools to make people just have a little bit more peace of mind, especially if you're getting the APR through the Jewel S Flare pool. There's definitely some APR there where you can also potentially, get some coverage.
I think that's anyway something that's often missing in DeFi. Obviously, everything says it has risk, a little bit of risk here, a little bit of risk here. I get the question, when are you out of beta? Well, maybe in 10 years, who knows?
Peace of mind is nice, right? Contract risk, stuff like that, making sure that you don't, have that as a problem, I think is worthwhile. So that's why I like coverage.
Yeah. I'm sure it will do great where I live because people love to insure stuff here.
Oh, that's interesting.
I think I have like 3 travel insurances or something. In your opinion, what is something that the Flare network needs?
Maybe some gamification of some sort. one protocol I really like to put normies onto is Pool Together. And that's not a shill. It's just a fun one to get into. It's a zero loss lottery kind of situation where you can buy tickets, and the interest on those tickets is what people win. So you can always like withdraw your money, which is
Okay.
kind of cool, right? But that right there might be interesting. But I think something to gamify, bring people in, make it fun, is one. Other than that, though, I think we have a couple new things coming live over the couple months, which hopefully we can bring to Flare, and those are around like options and perpetuals and stuff. And so hopefully, maybe that will also invoke some new LP DeFi Legos.
Yeah, that sounds good. Better than my answer, which was like, I don't know at this moment. I'll get back to you later.
You got to dream something. Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, and of course, like I'm a gamer, so I always love stuff that gives me XP. Doesn't matter if it actually does anything. It's just
just want more of it. Yeah.
just something. Yeah. What's the average Steer user like?
Oh, that's a good question. I would say it's just an average DeFi user. Usually not too complicated. For a lot of our chains, we do have single asset deposit, which makes it really easy to get involved. But yeah, usually it's just the average DeFi user. It's not an institutional user. It's not some big big whales. It's usually a bunch of just DeFi users that are on the chain. We also work with a lot of like chain foundations that are working to broaden the ecosystem itself. So through that, I guess we've learned some things. And then the last one is we do help a lot of protocols on chain with their markets, maybe to help provide some strategies that run. Or in regards to just broadening what they can do on chain, because we can do really interesting types of automation through our platform. So it really runs the gamut, foundations to protocols all the way down to just the normie DeFi. But I would say for our Smart Pools product and what people see us on Steer for right now, at least, it would be really just the normie who's probably listening to this chat right now.
How can users take advantage of Steer's multi-network support?
Oh, that's a good question. So we have a bunch of different partners, one of those being Enzo, another one being LiFi, and that allows you to bridge assets from chain to chain. I believe Flare is hopefully going to be on that list one day. I'm not too sure if it is today, but to answer the question in regards to our current multi-chain strategy is that if you have assets sitting on ETH mainnet or Optimism or Polygon or Arbitrum or whatever, and you want to get onto a Steer pool that lives on one of those chains, we're across 30 chains right now and growing. But if you see a pool on there, you should be able to just go from ETH on mainnet to, let's say, Flare Jewel on Flare, right, on a single transaction, and it should just do all the math and just make it easy for you, right? And that is the biggest way I think you can leverage our multi-chain support. If you're a developer and you develop a strategy on top of us, for instance, you did it on Polygon, and you're listening to this now, and you're saying maybe I should go put it on Flare. All the apps that live on top of our network also are cross-chain compatible. So you can take the app that you developed on Steer over at Polygon and go bring it over to Flare, and that's also really, really nice.
Yeah. That definitely sounds like a good idea. Moving assets between networks. I think when I started with DeFi, I was like, "What is this? Why do
I still worry. I still worry as transactions go through. I just sit, waiting because it's still scary. I mean, there's nothing that's going to change it. I don't know.
Steer offers support for Sceptre staked Flare on several smart pools. What's the difference between a smart pool and a traditional liquidity pool?
That's fair enough. So traditional liquidity pool on an AMM would probably just be the AMM pool itself, where you would manage your liquidity manually, which means that you'd have to sit there. Hopefully, if the market is moving that day, you'd probably want to sit at your computer a little bit more than you did a day that it would be a little bit calmer. And basically, the only difference is that we automate that liquidity for you versus having to sit there and constantly monitor the markets. Other than that, though, we sit on top of the same pools. If you're providing liquidity manually, you could see large chunks of liquidity start moving in that pool. That could be a larger liquidity managed pool through Steer.
Thank you for the explanation. We touched on it a bit before. Oh, okay. I'm quite new to Flare. How can I use it on Steer, and where can I find the educational material to learn and how to do it? Well, like one answer would be this show because you just saw it.
We do. If you check out docs.steer.finance, there's actually a fair share of documentation on how to use S-Flare. I think also maybe a blog post was also put out by one of our partners on the Flare network, also describing how you can get involved with S-Flare pool. And I'll make sure that our team kind of puts it out on our Discord. So if you come join our Discord, we'll have it there for you.
The amount of S-Flare locked in Steer grew over 50% in Sceptre's most recent staking period. So that's like a week or two ago. What do you think Steer is doing to attract so many depositors?
Yeah, I would say it's probably the APRs, right? And the peace of mind that the liquidity is being managed. You don't have to worry about it, right? I think somebody called it like LP and chill one time to us, and I thought that was a pretty good theme, right? I think it's like just steer it. But the idea really is that it's the peace of mind for one, and then two, the APR is pretty good. I think right now, even looking at the APR, I forgot what it was, but it was sitting over 200 or 300%, which means that actually there's a lot more room to go for depositors into this pool without having without it not being attractive, right? So the APR could go down all the way to maybe 50%, even 40%. I bet you'd probably still see depositors because that still sounds really nice, right? So it's really a combination, I think, of both the product as well as the APRs. I will say that the smart pools do deepen liquidity. So if you're a trader who wants to trade S-Flare and Jewel, we are basically your best friend because we help it where you have less slippage during that trade.
Follow-up question on that, like, if you only have S-Flare or you only have Jewel, can you participate in the pool, or do you have to get the other assets first?
Depends on the strategy. If there is a single-sided strategy, you could go in with one, and that would be using like our classic rebalance. I kind of showed that a little bit during the demo there. But normally, usually people are coming in with two different assets into a pool. For instance, with the S-Flare Jewel, you would need to go acquire those two assets. Right. And do a trade of sorts. Yep.
Okay, so someone found Steer Network on your.
Oh, interesting. Website. Nice. Sure. Steer Network is a network layer or a chain basically, which connects the 30 plus chains that we're currently on. A lot of our network currently sits at the destination chain, and the Steer Network is an upcoming chain that will allow us basically to get higher throughput. We'll have more what we call protocol validated service committees, all basically coming to consensus on that chain. And then we'll have the Steer Bridge network basically that will publish those across those 30 chains as like heartbeats. So people can basically do larger executions. Right now, we run about 2,500 concurrent strategies across all of the chains. But that number is supposed to increase as we add more of our partners on board and get into different verticals. And so we need the ability to scale that, and the Steer network basically allows for that scalability.
All right, I think for me that makes sense. You basically become the spider attached to all the networks, and you need this scale. Because otherwise, I think we need bridges between all the different networks, and it just becomes this crisscross of.
That's correct. Yeah, that's correct. Yep.
All right, that makes absolute sense. Okay, then keep coming. That's great. Could you explain how Steer off-chain compute platform works and how developers can leverage it to write applications in multiple languages and connect with data feeds across different chains? Long question.
Yeah, sure. Let's get into it. So let's say you're going to do like, so Steer is now, so like I said earlier in the call, we are on two different parts of the platform. Usually we're on the back end, hopefully propelling protocols and helping them with their off-chain automation. But on the user side of things, we provide these strategies and these marketplaces that developers can go publish user-facing applications that they can use without using any code, right? So those are like the smart pools and stuff like that. So if you're a developer and you want to go develop a different type of application, that could call it a data-driven NFT, you could use Steer's off-chain compute, write your own application, and that uses 30 plus different languages. So you could use C, TypeScript, Python, Go, Rust, whatever you decide. You can write that in programming language that's familiar to you, connect to our data marketplace. We have over 120 different data feeds connected in there. So you don't have to go figure out how to connect to Polygon's data sources or getting the price feed of S-Flare. All of that is easily accessible. And then you can deploy across any chain. So those are those like kind of like those multi-chain apps that we were talking about earlier. So if you're a developer, we have a developer SDK that you can download today. There's also a integrated IDE that you can launch inside your browser, so you can like build and test and kind of see what you're doing. And if this is interesting to you, please connect with us. But the idea here is that you'd be able to build any type of on-chain automation, taking any kind of data and having any type of on-chain execution.
All right. Any ideas on having, I guess, liquidity on Songbird if staking is enabled? Well, I guess the question is to you: are you expanding to Songbird?
Oh, that's interesting. I think we have no qualms with expanding to Songbird, to be honest with you. So most likely you'll see it there. I think the biggest thing is once we see the proper dexes form over there. I don't know if Spark Dex is also coming, so I don't know. but I would say that if the right partners are aligned there, then you'll definitely see us on Songbird 100%.
What are the unique advantages of utilizing off-chain compute and concentrated liquidity compared to traditional on-chain solutions? And how does it benefit developers and users? So a lot of questions in one.
So first off, the advantages are we have strategies that are immensely algorithmic. Whereas if you're living in an on-chain world, you don't have access to off-chain data, right? You're living really within that block and within that transaction. So you really don't have access to go do interesting things. And sometimes it costs too much gas, so it's too expensive. So what we do is we offload that all off-chain, so you can do just about any kind of math you want to do. And that right there allows us to just compete better than the traditional on-chain solutions that you see. It benefits developers because now we have a developer stack where you can go to build and hopefully get rewarded for building. And for users, they basically get access now to these Farcaster frame like strategies that they can go pick up and deploy on any market that they want.
Let's see. How does Steer's concentrated liquidity management solution contribute to enhancing liquidity, reducing slippage, and generating higher fee returns for the projects and users?
Sure. So if you're providing liquidity into a pool, that means you're making it more dense, hopefully around the current price range. And if that's occurring, that means that there's more money for you to trade. So if there's say $1 million there, you're trying to trade $10, there probably won't be a lot of slippage. There's a lot of liquidity. If you're trying to then do a larger trade, let's say $300,000 trade on $1 million, right? Then there might be some movement of the price, right? You're doing about a third. And so the idea is, how do you enhance the liquidity by concentrating more of it around the current active ranges? And that in turn will reduce slippage. In regards to higher returns, that really ends up being how well can you compete against the different liquidity providers in a pool. So we'll actually have sometimes multiple different smart pools fighting against each other for better APRs, and users sometimes pick one over the other. And depending on how that plays out, maybe it'll get a better APR, maybe it'll have higher or lesser IL. But the idea here is that because we're able to have these advanced strategies that concentrate the liquidity, we reduce the slippage, and because it's more concentrated, it generates a higher fee than if you were just to place the liquidity. That's what people call full range, which is maybe slightly more advanced topic. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, you touched on it earlier, where you basically choose a range, right? And I guess full range is obviously whatever price range there is.
Full range.
Yeah. I saw this question. I'm guessing someone is wondering where's your token?
Yeah. No comment. Yeah, no comment. I will say that the plans are that there's a fair share of utility for the token when it does hit the network. At launch, I think if you've been in part of our docs for a while, there's been hints of it at times. I think sooner rather than later, I think is the better answer.
Okay, so as I thought, when there's no comment, there's a plan.
Yeah, there's always got to be a plan. Yeah,
that's true. with recent launches of Steer solution in Polygon, what opportunities does this integration bring for projects in terms of scalability, optimization, liquidity management, or optimized liquidity management?
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I can talk about Polygon, and then I'll maybe also talk about Flare as well. So, in regards to the launch of whenever we do come to chains, what we find is that initially we are the kind of liquidity source for people who want to deposit liquidity inside of AMMs, which is generally about the most productive thing you can do outside of providing your liquidity for like a lending protocol. There's like two major places, right, where like economic activity is happening, and you can find yourself as a recipient of that. For projects, what's really nice for them is that they can provide liquidity services, maybe manage some of their POL, project owned or protocol owned liquidity. There's also, they need to be able also to run liquidity mining programs, and how do they foster, deepen liquidity for their markets so that their projects can also succeed, right? And so usually the opportunities that end up coming to the chain or for the protocols that we engage with is that if they have a token, we're able to hopefully foster a good community around that token, or hopefully reduce the slippage and optimize that.
No, it hasn't been this busy with questions before, so I'm like,
sure, let's let it rip. Let it rip. How does? Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. You already read. Go ahead.
No. How does Steer ensure the security and integrity of the liquidity management process? What are the processes in place to prevent? That's a great one. So Steer first and foremost runs multiple different nodes to come to consensus on every strategy update that happens on chain. And to do that, it goes through a fully deterministic like pipeline where the data has to be the same, and then we execute the strategy as well. And that also has to execute the same across multiple different independent nodes. And then even after that happens, let's say all of them were compromised and they tried to do something nefarious, there are certain contract level limitations around how far you can move the liquidity at one time, how much slippage you're willing to incur around a swap in regards to the rebalance, and a bunch of other security measures that basically help us basically stay in tune with what's happening off chain and on chain. Jewel can be potentially used as a reward token through our staking platform. It can also be used through our Omni Rewards platform. If people are looking to also do like less impactful buying or selling of Jewel, they can use our platform for like single side liquidity placement, which is also kind of nice if you want to do like a DCA style-ish strategy. You could use our multi-position, say I want to be on the right-hand side or the left-hand side, whatever one it would be. And at that point, I want to accumulate over time into Jewel or out of Jewel. Which is really, really nice because you're not doing direct buy sells into the market. And it's really the market, if it moves in your direction, then it sells. And if it doesn't, then it buys it back, which is also kind of nice.
What's the best strategy to minimize impermanent loss? I don't know if you dare to answer that one.
Yeah, honestly, I would say the only thing, there's no way to do it. The way to minimize it, though, is, and a lot of people, this is what I'll say. If you see a high APR, understand what the base APR is first. We show a couple different APRs. We share our stake list, the staking, and then the base. The base is really what the strategy is doing. If the strategy is doing over 100%, right? That sounds really nice, right? But it could be because it's really narrow and it's going to have higher IL. So what I like to tell people is if there's a lower percentage, go for that because that means it's probably wider. And all of our strategies on their pages, there's a width. You can hover over that and it'll tell you the exact width of all the strategies at that time. And basically, my biggest thing is the wider the better. Rule of thumb.
Oh, that's all, folks. Okay, I am not going to do the whole bird thing. I don't think anyone wants to hear that. So that's it for the Q&A. So that was a hefty Q&A, I have to say. Pretty good.
It was.
Do you have some closing remarks? I think we're heading towards the end here.
Biggest thing I would say is if you're not following our Twitter, please do so. We have a bunch of things coming out, a new product in the next month, definitely a couple new pools, I think on SparkDex probably in the next week. There's two that I can see right now on the top 10 list that we don't support, so we better get to it, right? So you'll see those, yeah, I would just say let's try and get involved. We do have Flare Jewel is our top pool. Again, it's gained a lot of traction over the past couple weeks. It's currently doing 169% APR. Staking, it does 165%. So if you're looking for a real juicy reward on Flare Network, it seems that might be the place to be for right now, what it looks like.
Definitely. If you have those hanging around in your wallet, I think sending them over is probably a really good idea. Thank you very much, Derek, for coming on the show. You've been answering a shitload of questions, and I hope that helps our viewers to get a really good idea of what they can do with Steer, what the future possibilities are, and of course where to find you. So thank you very much. And we might see each other at some point again, doing one of these in the future when you have some more news to share. As to our audience, thank you for watching. I hope it was useful for you or otherwise entertaining. And we'll be having a new show in 2 weeks. So see you then. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.